What happens when you begin to truly honor your genius? When you not only identify what your sensory superpowers are, but you also use them daily, intentionally, and without apology. You create breakthroughs that most people can't even imagine. Let me introduce you to a few of my clients, ordinary people who stepped into extraordinary results once they own the abilities and the gifts that they were born with. Jennifer, clairaudience, career ascension, and a 3-year payback. Jennifer was a highly intelligent IT manager navigating a corporate culture dominated by men. She managed global teams, delivered results consistently, yet had been overlooked for 3 years in bonuses and raises that her male peers received. It was disheartening and soul draining to her. During one of our sessions, I asked her who was coming into the office on Friday. I described him, 3 levels above your current manager, and told her she needed an audience with him. I was using my sensory superpowers and intuitive abilities to read her life and possibilities. She resisted, not wanting to go over her boss's head, but I gave her the exact language and sentence to use with the assistant who was handling the scheduling for him, even giving her the assistant's name supernaturally, predicting she'd land a 15-minute appointment that would last between 30 to 35 minutes. And that's exactly what happened. She called me back 5 minutes later in shock that the sentence that I gave her to say to the assistant worked, and she was scheduled at 10:30 Friday morning. I took the opportunity then to coach Jennifer on how to listen beyond words, how to use her clairaudience to tune into what this executive was thinking so she could respond with connection and certainty. That Friday, she walked into his office for 15 minutes and she stayed for 32. She called me elated and talked about how special this meeting was and how grateful she was for the connection. When I explained that he needed to know her to help her with her career, she was excited to see what would come next. To her shock, within 3.5 months, Jennifer was promoted, not one time, but 3 times. She received 3 years of back pay, including bonuses that she had been previously denied. She began traveling, rising in recognition in her field, and most importantly, she discovered that her genius had always been within her. So imagine for a moment, what would it do to your life if you could receive 3 years of back pay in a corporate world where this never happens? How would it change your finances, your sense of worth, the endless possibilities you could suddenly step into knowing that you had created that kind of miracle? Now let's talk about Sean. He used clairvoyance, clairsentience, and his confidence was reborn. Sean was a brilliant chemical engineer. He had insights that others didn't, yet those around him often took credit for his ideas. He was passed over for promotions. He was burned out, and he was unsupported by management and entangled in codependent dynamics with colleagues who leaned on him emotionally and professionally. Well, once he began to see the power of his clairvoyance, his ability to see what others couldn't, and understood his clairsentience, which allowed him to feel and access energy in the room, everything shifted. He no longer needed external validation. He could discern when to speak and when to simply fulfill what he already knew to do. Within months, Sean secured a new job with a progressive company, doubled his income in corporate America, which is very rare, relocated to a new state, and was hired by a manager who deeply valued and mentored him, offering encouragement in ways he had never experienced before. His voice mattered. His insights mattered, and more importantly, he finally knew that he mattered. Now ask yourself, what would your life look like if you doubled your income in just a few months? Look, I've had clients that have 10x their salaries in 2 weeks. It's pretty wild how this works. What kind of freedom would that bring you? Would you move? Would you travel? Would you save, invest? How would it feel to finally be in a career where you are seen, valued, and celebrated, not silenced, overlooked, and ignored? Now let's talk about Jasmine, who used clairsentience and realigned her calling. Jasmine was a geriatric physician, overwhelmed, underinspired, and on the brink of burnout, and actually not even wanting to live. She dreaded going to work, didn't feel appreciated, and was stuck in a pattern of hiring employees who didn't perform or they stole from her. As we worked together, she discovered her clairsentience was the root of her exhaustion. She was absorbing the energy of each patient she treated, walking into rooms heavy with grief, despair, or hopelessness. Her empathic sensitivity had become her burden. But once she owned this ability and learned how to manage it, Jasmine began to see clearly. She became board certified in 2 new medical specialties and completely pivoted her career. She now has a #1 best-selling book, and she's doing something that coordinates holistic healing with being a physician. She now loves going to work, earns more than she ever did, and is no longer energetically entangled in hiring employees who don't meet her needs. She's thriving instead, and her life is full of passion and purpose. Imagine if you could turn exhaustion into energy, dread into joy, and burnout into passion. What would it mean for your health if you could wake up excited again? What would it do for your relationship if you no longer carried everyone else's weight? What kind of freedom would you finally feel if you could live aligned with your true calling? So why do I share these stories? Why do they matter? Each of these clients discovered something life-changing that was already within them. Your sensory superpowers, your clairs, aren't just spiritual fluff. You see, you're a spiritual being having a human experience. These are tools for leaderships, relationships, prosperity, health, and your soul's highest expression. When you own them, life becomes miraculous. You become the one who sees what others miss, hears what others ignore, feels what others suppress, and knows what others question. And here's the truth, the same is possible for you. All of these stories that I've shared are your stories waiting to be unfolded. Because if Jennifer could receive back pay and promotions beyond expectation, if Sean could double his income and find his voice, if Jasmine could realize what she was called to do and turn exhaustion into empowerment, then so can you. Now that you've seen what others have used their clairs to create breakthroughs, the real question becomes, now that you know you're gifted, you have abilities, what's next for you? That's exactly what we'll uncover in the next chapter. How to move from simply knowing your abilities into fully living them daily and intentionally. You'll learn the steps to practice, strengthen, and embody your genius. So miracles aren't just random, they're actually your way of living.